And in the middle of a dull-lit, weightless street, stands the shadow of a man shaped just like me. My curiosity keeps me confused. But still I stand here on my own, with nothing left to lose.
You know, I finished this game 3 months ago now, and no exaggeration, it has been a constant daily thought in my head, whether it's me reminiscing about my time with the game as I listen to the incredible soundtrack by Ludwig Forsall or L'Aurore, or the incredibly detailed animations and the character models that just about outdo any other game running in real time that I've seen, or even the deeply fascinating yet incredibly emotional narrative, which, as profoundly complex as it appears, it's explained beautifully and elegantly as you trek through this game's gorgeous yet isolated world. Death Stranding, to me, probably meant more as a cohesive game experience than anything else I played this generation. Now, don't believe I'm so arrogant to write off everything else I played and will continue to play as this being the best game this generation, because it's not. It's got some issues with the writing. Its gameplay is either going to resonate with you or just bore you to tears. But when I sit down and I give you guys a run through of my experience playing something, especially when it's a game like this where you're going to be spending hours through the days, weeks, and sometimes even months ahead being part of this long journey, I want to make sure that you guys know I'm doing my best to come at this from an objective, factual perspective. And I'm not sitting here saying, well, I love it, therefore everyone else is wrong. You know, I feel too many people tend to speak about their opinions as if they're gospel. And sometimes our opinions are factually correct, yes, and it works out. But there's a lot of times where I find that our arrogance forces us to turn a blind eye from recognizing that, as perfect as the experience may have meant to us, it is imperfect and flawed, and it's just that for us it didn't take away from that experience. So now with that mumbo jumbo out of the way, let's talk about Death Stranding. This is a game I was actually very excited to play, and I was very optimistic about leading up to its release. And usually during the week of E3, I take a week off of work and I attend the press conferences and sometimes the convention, depending on if I feel like that particular year is worth attending. But because we had COVID this year, I still sort of took a week off, but, you know, obviously I couldn't, there's nothing to really cover, you know, it was sort of a digital event this year with E3. But I still started a game, and last year, I started Red Dead Redemption 2 around this time, and this year I decided that I was going to be starting Death Stranding. Now, the reason I do this is because my time is so fragile and broken up between different days where I'm working full-time or doing other personal stuff, and it can feel like after spending a week with the game, I barely scratched the surface. So usually larger releases like this, especially those with a certain type of hype surrounding it, I like to start when I have a good, solid week to myself and just really dive in. And as I said, last year I started Red Dead Redemption 2, and this year was Death Stranding. I did not know what to expect when I played Death Stranding. I mean, I watched the majority of the trailers and was right along with all of you as we kept getting very convoluted details, and I just wasn't quite sure what to expect. all I knew is that it's a Hideo Kojima game and I'm probably going to like it. I mean, despite not being a Metal Gear fan, I have to give Kojima and team props for creating one of the most fun and dynamic game series out there. I do really enjoy Metal Gear Solid. So I expected Death Stranding to be as narrative focused as Metal Gear, which I honestly was looking forward to the most as someone who plays games primarily for the storytelling aspect. And Death Stranding sort of thrusts you into its world immediately upon starting it, and it does so with the expectation that you are there to keep an open mind and just allow this game's quirks and characters to just envelop your thoughts. And as a player, your mind is sort of working as a receiver of information, and you're kind of given piece by piece to this puzzle and not even given a hint as to what you're building. So I think that for those of you who are like me and you play video games for that narrative and that's what you most enjoy is the mystery and the emotional involvement and being a specter of events and wondering what's going to happen the very next moment, Death Stranding is not only deeply complex in that respect, it's also as complex as all the trailers that we've seen. And in fact, the very first reveal trailer for this game is an actual cutscene in the final game. And it just sort of shows you how laser focused this team was on creating this experience from day one. But for those of you who are here for storytelling, Death Stranding will disappoint. In fact, by the end of this game, you'll feel something so innately powerful that for me at least, it almost elicited a tear. I kid you not, it's been a long time since I felt that strongly for a narrative in a game, but Death Stranding did that for me. And this narrative is so important, so vital to this experience that even the gameplay and the world that this story inhabits works in tandem to heighten the emotional reaction of you, the player. I mean, quite literally, everything in this game has weight. You're a transporter in a post-apocalyptic world, and you deliver things from important and vital resources and documents to even the things that serve just entertainment purposes like books and movies and even game systems. And it's so human in its personality that sometimes you'll be traveling far and wide just to deliver collectible figurines to someone who you'll feel so proud of because it's these little small details in life that make us human. It's these little things that we like to enjoy, like video games, for example, which provide happiness. And Death Stranding understands that, and it's quite profound the first time that you deliver something like movies to someone, and they're all happy because they've been waiting to watch the films they ordered, and it's something else. And this feeling of accomplishment is unique to this game. When you make a large delivery, you honestly feel tired and exhausted having trekked so far across the open plains, the mountains and rivers, just to make it to someone's little bunker and provide them with just that extra bit more they need to remind themselves that life is still worth living. And I know that some of you who played the game and didn't enjoy it or found the gameplay to be boring and repetitive are shaking your head at me right now as I'm saying this, but in all honesty, I believe that we all play games for different reasons, and there is no right way. I recognize for you may be playing this game and you are wanting a fulfilling and challenging gameplay experience that rewards you with upgrades and unlocks, and Death Stranding isn't that. I mean, there are upgrades and unlocks, yes, but only after you've exhausted your other options as much as you can see. And it does turn around and actually give you these upgrades. I mean, I was trekking through a snowy mountain in particular. It was extremely harsh. You can't really drive through snow well, and if you try to walk it, Sam here has to lift his feet and really push himself to just simply navigate across the deep snow beds. But when you meet this particular person who sort of recognizes how unprepared you are for this environment, they turn around and give you an all-terrain exoskeleton. As you sort of strap this thing onto your waist and legs, all of a sudden you go from moving at a snail's pace to finally being able to maneuver. And it's so hard to describe just how amazing that feeling is, especially to those of you who haven't played the game or played the game but just not that much of it. I mean, this game honestly requires you to sit down and really have patience. This game, just like any real thoughtful movie, does not honestly care about its pacing, because what's more important here is the larger picture, and that's what separates this story from the many out there. It's phenomenal, but it does lean towards you being a particular type of audience in order to really find that. And I honestly feel bad for those who couldn't play this game, although I would never ridicule you, because I know it's not for everyone, and even I sometimes have to recognize that the patience I give myself for games is so great, and it doesn't always help me. Sometimes it results in me forcing myself to play things that I hate, and it sucks. But where that patience does come in handy is generating a fulfilling, complete experience when it comes to these sort of larger games. And by the end of Death Stranding, I spent 50 hours in its world, and I built many roads and structures, and I'll just never forget my time with this game. So I think I've touched up enough on the story. I just wanted to emphasize just how much this narrative meant to me, and it's helped encourage me a lot with my writing projects, and even just with the way I think. It's sort of become an inspiration in that respect. But moving forward, this is a game, and there are other elements to discuss, and one that needs little discussion here are the visuals. So this is made with the Decima engine that powered Horizon Zero Dawn, as well as the Kills and Shadowfall, I believe. And this is easily one of the most gorgeous games ever made. I think anyone can recognize that even through a YouTube video, but the main highlights here are the character models. I have never seen more detailed character models running in real time than this game. In fact, they look too good. This game looks like it could be a PS5 game at times, and you'll be baffled at just how this game is even running and looking this good on a console. I mean, there are scenes here, especially towards the end, where the visuals look so real, so genuine, that any passerby seeing you play it will ask you, what are you watching? I mean, good lord, man. Frame rate is equally solid too, and we don't get a solid 60 FPS here like we do with Metal Gear Solid 5, but what we do get is a solid 30, and it's fine for this game. You're not going to be running around doing high intense action like you will in the Metal Gear series. But equally, sound design is phenomenal as we get this incredible score by Ludwig Forsal, and as you're sort of traversing through the world during key areas, music from Low Roar kicks in, and there's just such a semblance between what you're playing and what you're hearing. It just hits you in a way that very few games do. And there's even more. Like, it's so hard for me to sit down and honestly discuss the game as a complete experience, because it's so deep and there's so many moving parts. But I also want to touch upon the multiplayer. This game uses an asynchronous multiplayer, and I swear it's the most ingenious use of multiplayer I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I grew up seeing the rise of really online play, right? And it's all competitive and cooperative based focused. It's either you fighting others or you working with others to take down something else like AI. In Death Stranding, you'll never see another player, but instead, everyone helps contribute to the reconstructionism of this world. So you use resources to build structures, things like a bridge, road, weather towers, ladders, ropes, zip lines, and sometimes you don't always have the necessary resources to complete a project. So you can start the project, right? Lay the foundation, if you will, and other players who come across it may like your project and they may want to help and contribute. And so they can use some of their resources in their game to sort of donate to your structure. And by the end of it, it's a complete win-win situation, because other people in the game get to use your structure and it just helps everyone out. You also have a brilliant social system. I mean, there's only a like button in this game. You can't actually give any negative feedback of any kind to anyone. So if you find something not useful, it sort of reminds you to be kind and just simply move on. Sort of like that age-old adage of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. It's incredible, man. I never in a million years would have thought that multiplayer could be used like this. And to be clear, the game isn't an always online game, but I honestly believe that if you were to disconnect from the internet with this game and completely play it offline, it would greatly hinder the experience. It's fascinating and ingenious, and it just makes you feel so proud and proud of others as well. And you may be thinking, what's the probability of people helping me build structures in the game? I mean, I played this game in June. That's about 7 months after its release. I'll put it in perspective with a little story here. I started building a road in the game, and I stopped playing the game for around 5 days. When I came back, that road stretched for miles, and I was honestly shocked. The whole world didn't even look recognizable anymore, and I received so many likes over my time from the game. I think I completed the game with almost 300,000 likes by the end of it. I mean, I was just I was in absolute shock, and I continued to build and pull my resources into building roads, and so by the end of the game, I had a road stretching from one side of the map nearly to the other, which, if you don't know, is miles and miles and miles. Essentially, your in-game map is the full United States in this game. That's where this game takes place, is the United States. I mean, the United Cities. So the entire continent, basically, is explorable space. But it's honestly not as large as you may think. But the scale is large enough, and it feels significant, just not impossible. I don't want anyone thinking that this is Assassin's Creed Odyssey, after all. So to conclude this here, honestly, the best review I can give this game is just to simply try it for yourself. I mean, I can honestly sit here and discuss how much I love this story, the graphics, the music, and the world, and even appreciate its gameplay, though it's not necessarily the most thrilling. But what made this entire experience so special is going in and not allowing myself to expect anything from it. I mean, it's so different, and it does things differently from other games that you can't possibly know if you're going to enjoy this unless you tried it. So if I did anything with this review, it's that I hope I encourage some of you just to take a chance. And hey, if you don't like it, I understand, and that's completely valid, but you have that experience of trying something and giving yourself a chance to experience something unknown and peculiar to what you usually play. And I think that those kind of experiences are so valuable, and they don't come to us enough. So as for Death Stranding, I'm thankful that it exists. It stands as one of my top 5 games this generation, primarily for its storytelling and its world. And I think for me that it's really going to stand tall up on my list next to a lot of other amazing games that I've played, such as BioShock, Uncharted, Mass Effect, God of War. It'll be a memory of mine as I continue to sort of draw back, and I'm really thankful that something like this exists out there. So Death Stranding is fascinating, and at least for me, I walked away very fulfilled and very happy with what I played. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do know that the game's been out there, but it did release sort of a little bit later on PC now, so now people who are playing on PC can now play this game. It's no longer a PlayStation exclusive. But honestly, that's the best advice I can give, is just to try this game. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Keep on keeping on, and we'll talk about this later. Thanks.
Elsewhere in life, so babe, you walk your way.